everything now, you need lawyers, or you just do not seem to get any attention. People do not sit up and take notice.
But it may be too late. In the harbor, the U.S. Marshal is already seizing boats whose owners no longer catch enough fish to pay their bills. And here, the home port of the largest fishing fleet on the East Coast, the prospect of even a temporary ban on commercial fishing sends shivers up the mayor's spine.
It's probably going to impact anywhere from 2,000 people upwards of 8,000 people when you consider all the other industries that depend on it, the restaurants, the marine suppliers, the welders, the fuel suppliers, the ice houses, everybody.
In communities like this, all along the East Coast, the Commerce Department figures as many as 20,000 people will lose at least some of their incomes. The ripple is that deep and wide.
Well, I don't know, I've got to have $10,000 to $15,000 worth of these in stock. It's just useless.
Ed Longo, for instance, supplies netting and other gear to the fishermen.
You've got some of the suppliers like myself that are solely dependent on fishermen. They're gone. You've got these settlement houses. There's got to be a half a dozen settlement houses. That's bookkeepers that take care of their, the trips that are made, and they pay the men, and they're out of business.
To help keep the fishing communities afloat, the government has come up with $30 million. $30 million for all of New England.
You had a lot better success with this. You kind of smaller opening right here.
Under the program, fishermen can get loans to refit their boats for fish that were once considered trash, or they can apply for job retraining at local assistance centers.
I need a work history skill sheet.
None of that impresses Howard Nickerson, head of the association that represents 150 skippers here. He says most of them will simply fish other waters.
We'll probably go down south, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and catch fluke, or summer flounder and winter flounder. We'll probably go up into Maine and try to catch fish in off their shoulders.
That is exactly what the government fears, that the boats displaced from the North Atlantic will plunder other places where the fishing is not much better.
New England is by far the worst problem we face anywhere in the country, but it's not an isolated instance. We have 43% of the fish stocks in the United States waters are now overfished. And so we're facing, not only in this country, but worldwide, we're facing a fishing crisis.
The crisis has finally forced some fishermen to concede. They must sacrifice now or sabotage their own future.
We've been putting up with pain for a long time. I call it a slow bleeding to death. And I'm one of those people who's very tired of the slow bleeding, knowing that in a couple of years, I believe that there can be a tremendous recovery of the resource, and that the volume we could start catching after a few years of laying back could easily offset what we're not going to catch for the couple of years that we give them this break.
In the years it will take to rebuild the resource, the fishermen of New England face a stark and historic choice. They can protect the harvest for future generations, or like the American whalers here before them, become just another relic of a bygone era. This is Chris Bury for Nightline in New Bedford, Massachusetts.
As we sit back tonight and try to recover from all the food we enjoyed today, the Thanksgiving story of the fishermen of New England sends its own clear message. There are still great riches in this land of ours, but they are not inexhaustible, and they must be carefully tended. So that, as Governor William Bradford told the Pilgrims back in 1621, they might in a special manner rejoice together after they had gathered the fruit of their labor. And that's our report for tonight. I'm Chris Wallace in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night and happy Thanksgiving.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.